guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with some queer romance recommendations for you. It is Pride Month, and so I thought it'd be great to sit down and film some of my favorite queer romances, and I have a lot here, so I'm excited to chat about them. Before I get started, I do want to recommend, though, another friend's channel. She is actually doing a whole trope week. I don't know if she's started yet because I am pre-filming. It's the first today, and she just posted today that she's doing a ton of videos. She just posted an Instagram graphic. My good friend Samantha from Books with Samantha, she is doing a whole trope week full of queer romances, so definitely check her channel out, check her out, check her videos out. I love her, so if you want more recs, go watch Samantha's videos. And also, as a reminder, make sure you're reading queer all year. It is Pride Month, so you should be prioritizing those books, but you should be reading them all year anyways. So I will go ahead and get to some of my personal favorite queer romances and what I would recommend you pick up. I will say I'm a lot better at picking up traditionally published queer romances because I have better access to those audiobooks. So a lot of these are traditionally published. I do have some indie sprinkled in here, but I will go ahead and get started. I have a graphic in front of me, and then I have even more that I pulled off my shelves because I just have a lot I want to share. If you want to start out historical, one of my favorite queer historical romances is The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Erica Ridley. This is a sapphic historical romance, and the one heroine likes to have disguises. So this series surrounds a family that also has like different quirks. Like one of them is good at forging things, one of them is good at, I think, voices. It's been a while since I've read this series, and I don't know if she's come out with anything recently in the series, actually, now that I think about it, but I love this series. And the one heroine does disguises very well. So she disguises herself as a man, and she initially meets the heroine, and they get along really well, and it does come out her true identity like very quickly, so that's not an issue at all of like her keeping secret who she is. The one heroine needs help uncovering this thing, and she's really excited when she meets this baron that can help her, and she's even more excited when she realizes she's a woman. So then they team up to try to uncover this mystery. This has a lot of fun, like, little shenanigans going on in the series, so obviously they fall in love with the process. Really, really love this one. Great sapphic historical. Okay, we're just gonna go through the stack first and then go to any that I missed from my graphics. So the next one is Written in the Stars by Alexandra Bellafleur. The two heroines are actually set up on a blind date, and the one is so tired of her brother setting her up and people being all over her about dating that she lies and says they had the best date ever, and she's really into her. And so her brother goes and tells her date that, and her date is like, were we on the same date? Because that was actually really bad. They end up kind of like playing along with the fact that they really like each other and that the date went really well, so it's like kind of fake dating, and they end up falling for each other in the process of that. This whole series is really great, but this is the first book in the series if you want to try it out, and I just had so much fun reading this one. Then we have another one that I feel like I talk about a lot, but I read it last year, and it just really surprised me because I also don't see a lot of people talking about this one, and it is That Summer Feeling by Bridget Morrissey. I definitely have to check out if this author has another book coming out this year, because this was her release last year, but this one is about our heroine who she just got divorced from her husband, and she's at this like sleepaway camp with her sister, and it's for adults, and the other heroine is there with her brothers, and she's really close with her brothers, and the one heroine with the sister kind of doesn't have that great of a family life, and so it's kind of cathartic for them to be at this camp together, and they end up becoming friends. And she, though, thinks that she is meant to be with her brother. So she had this kind of like premonition in an airport where she ran into the brother, and she saw herself super happy at a family dinner with him. So she's like, this guy is who I was supposed to move on with. And so in her mind, she's like, I need to date this guy. And she kind of confides in her best friend at the camp, the girl, that she's like going to be with the brother. And so the heroine who has the brother is like, oh, because she like really likes this girl, but then they quickly realize they're actually falling for one another. And I think this is just the perfect summer read, where it definitely delves into a lot about themselves as people and dealing with what they've gone through, and also just having fun at a summer camp as adults. And I really liked it, and then they fall in love, and it was so cute. Then I have two sapphic romances that were indie/are indie. So the first one is Serpentine Valentine by Jana Darling. Love this. This is definitely a very dark sapphic romance. I was talking to Samantha about how I really want like angsty and emotional sapphic romances, because a lot of them are just more like lighthearted, and at least of the ones that I've read, especially when they're trad published, but this one is super dark. So the one heroine, she is really dedicated to her education, and she is getting close to this one professor, and he ends up assaulting her, and she was upfront from the start. She's like, I'm a lesbian, I have never liked men, and he's like, oh, okay, and then he assaults her, and nobody believes her of what happened. He literally like leaves her bleeding in the woods, and she comes back on campus, and the president, who has been her mentor, just shuns her and wants to kick her out, but she fights and she's able to stay, and she kind of creates this crew of women who teach the gross men on campus a lesson. So if they hear something had happened, if they assaulted women, they go and teach them a lesson, and so they have this reputation on campus, and everybody hates her. They think that she is just very promiscuous, and she's the one who seduced the professor, and she lied about it, and she has a reputation. And the heroine, the other heroine, is actually the president's daughter, and the one heroine who was assaulted, she's like, I'm gonna get with the president's daughter to teach the president a lesson. So it's kind of like a seduction for revenge story, but the heroine, who's the president's daughter, she's dating like the hotshot guy on campus. She's never really thought that she was bisexual, so she's really learning a lot about her own sexuality, and it is such a good romance. Like, their romance is so good, and it's definitely a dark romance. We talk a lot about what happened to the one heroine who was assaulted. It is on page, so please know that, but I love this so much, and just like the female empowerment of the story is amazing. I love Gianna Darling. Please read this one. The next one I have is Tristic's Venom by Penelope Douglas. This one is a bully romance. So they're from like opposite sides of the track, and this one, they are also, I believe, lacrosse teammates. I read this back when it came out, so it has been a long time. It came out in 2021, so it's been 3 years since I've read this one, but it's definitely very dark. It's definitely a bully romance. I remember them really digging deep into each other's insecurities and really pushing at each other, but obviously they fall in love with one another. If you like a dark bully sapphic romance, definitely read this one. I absolutely loved it. Then we have one that I'm actually reading one of his now, and I'm obsessed, and it's Tal Bauer. Tal Bauer writes just very emotional, but they feel like a warm hug romances, if that makes sense. So I'm reading How to Say I Do. I think this is the title of the book right now, but I read the rest of the story last year. If a book can make me cry, it's very special to me. So this one's very found family. The one hero is a hockey player. He does write a lot of sports romances, so I'm excited to read more from him. The one's a hockey player, and he has been traded to a team that's basically like a death sentence for your career. He's like, great, I'm gonna go out on this team, and he immediately recognizes like something is wrong with this team. Like, these people are not happy. Weird things are going on, and so he quickly realizes someone is being very abusive towards the players, and so he takes on this leadership role. He's never been a leader really, but he is kind of put in this position where he takes on this leadership role and is captain of the team. And the other person that's helping him in this leadership role is a rookie on the team who's a little bit older than the other rookies because he went to college first and played, and now he's put on this team, and they band together to really bring this team from the ashes. They have to rebuild themselves, and they are just emotionally scarred from what had happened on the team, and then they start falling for each other, the two hockey players together, and it is so good. So found family, and you love all of these characters, and so emotional, and I'm just obsessed with Tal Bauer now. So I do own 2 other books by him, and then I'm reading that other one on ebook, so please read Tal Bauer if you haven't yet, especially if you love sports romances. I also love Allison Cochran. I don't know how to say her last name, but I love Kiss Her Once for Me if you need a sapphic Christmas romance. I will recommend her other one that's MM. This one, obsessed. This one is a Christmas romance, like I said, and the one heroine, she needs money, and she's really good friends with this guy that comes into, I think she has a coffee shop or something. I don't remember how they met, but he literally is like, why don't we get married? Like, I can help you, and I like get this inheritance, let's get married. So they have this engagement going on, and she goes home with his family for Christmas and meets his sister, and it turns out she had an unbelievable one-night stand last Christmas with his sister, and she ghosted her. So something had went down when they were together. Like, they literally were so into each other, and then she left, and we slowly unravel why. It gets a little messy. I love the parents in here too, and it gets a little messy with the guy that she's engaged to, who he's really into, and it's just fun. It is just such a fun Christmas sapphic romance, and highly recommend checking it out. The other one I love is The Charm Offensive. So I used to love The Bachelor. Like I watched it all the time in high school. Then it got annoying and I don't watch it anymore, but I watched like Love is Blind. I love reality shows. The Charm Offensive, the one hero is like The Bachelor. He's on the show to find like the one for him, but he starts falling for his like handler. So like the person assigned to him to help him with everything. They end up falling in love with one another, and obviously he's supposed to be like falling in love with these dates that he's going on, but he is really falling in love behind the scenes. So I had so much fun listening to this audiobook. This one was just so good. So if you want a really good reality show romance, read this one. Another sapphic one, and I feel like there were mixed reviews about this one specifically, but I loved it, was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. This one is similar kind of to Ashley Poston, where there's a little bit of like a fantastical element where the one heroine is stuck on this subway. So the one heroine will ride the subway and she meets the other heroine, and she just is different and they really get along really well, and she's actually stuck on the subway since like the 80s. It's the 70s. She's actually been there from the 70s, and she just really starts loving riding the subway, and she quickly realizes she's actually stuck on the subway, and their story goes from there. I loved this audiobook so much, and I didn't expect to, because I had seen a lot of people not love this book, but I loved it. I did read this a while ago. It came out in 2021, but since Red, White, and Royal Blue got a movie, like I wouldn't mind seeing this adapted as well, because it was just so good. Then another one I was obsessed with last year is Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. I do have to read Anita Kelly's new sapphic romance that came out, but this one is an romance on the Pacific Coast Trail, which I just love that setting, and the two heroes are really grappling with different things that they're trying to get through personally. The one hero, his family figured out he was gay and pretty much disowned him, and he's been so close to them, so it's devastating for him. And the other hero is definitely dealing with some drama with his past relationships, and they meet on the trail and they start hiking together, and it's just, they click so well and they really like each other, and at one point one of them goes home with the other one, and they really are grappling with personal things that they really have to work through before they can be with each other. So that's what this mainly focuses on, but I loved it. This one made me cry too, so it was just so good. The next one I'm recommending was not a personal favorite of mine, but I do think that you would enjoy it if you picked it up, so I'm going to still recommend it. I gave it, I think, 3.5 stars, but that's Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. I love women's soccer. I really built this up in my head to be just like the next most amazing book ever, and it just wasn't for me because it did deal a lot with the heroine. I think one of them was being diagnosed with something, and it was a lot about them learning how to live with this diagnosis, so I wanted a little bit more focus on the romance, but this one is a US women's soccer romance where the one is a new player on the team and the other one is like a very well respected like veteran on the team, and it's a romance together, which I really enjoyed. But like I follow the women's soccer team relationships and I am obsessed with some of them, so I was just really excited for something to be like in my wheelhouse because I love women's soccer. I followed the US team. I got to go to a game this past year when they were in Columbus, so if you want a sports romance and one that like does delve more into like personal things more so than the romance as well, I think you should check this out. It wasn't bad, I just like wanted more from it. But Megan Rapinoe, who is a retired US women's soccer player, I believe is making this into a movie or a show, which I think is so cool. So I'm very excited for that. So check this out if you're interested, because it will be coming to the screens sometime in the future. And then I do have a few more before I get to the ones I don't own. So we have Saint by Sierra Simone. One of my favorite books of, I think last year I read this. It's very, very emotional. It's an romance between a monk and it's a second chance romance. They were together and then the one was at such a low point in his life and he needed something to make him want to stay alive. So he became a monk and he found peace in life, and then the other one comes back to him as a reporter wanting to write an article about the brewery that they have at the monastery, and they end up having to go on a trip together to Europe, and it's just a very, very emotional story. Cried reading this, could not recommend it enough. Then I do have Pucking Around by Emily Rath, because this is a Why Choose romance, but the romance in here is honestly one of my favorites that I've read. So this one is a hockey romance where the heroine is a trainer and she is assigned to this hockey team. She had actually had a one-night stand with one of them previously and expected never to see him again, but the team she's on, he is on there and he is actually in love with his best friend. So him and his best friend have never never actually like gone further with each other, but they are obviously in love with each other. And his best friend was a hockey player and his career got cut short, and he is now like the equipment manager for the team. And so she has a relationship with both of them. They have a relationship with each other, and then she also has a relationship with the goalie of the team. So this one specifically would be for the MM relationship in here, but I loved this. It is long, but it is so good. All of the individual relationships were built so well because we have 4. It's her with each 3 guys and then the MM guy. So it's basically 4 romances you really have to develop. And I thought it was amazing. I loved it, and so much hockey. It was so good. And another hockey romance is Iced Out by C.E. Ricky. This one is a teammates romance, and they are rivals and they hate each other, but now they're teammates. And then before a game, one of them ends up doing something with the other one, and then they win, and they're like, guess what, we gotta do this now every time. So it is a hate to love romance, hockey romance, lots of fun. I really enjoy this one too. I almost forgot about Wolf Song by TJ Klune. This whole series is MM romances. This one is still my favorite of the series. This one is Joe and Ox has always been an outsider, and it's just him and his mom, and Joe moves in next door with his family, and Joe and Ox immediately get along. And Joe's just a little bit younger though, so nothing really happens in their relationship until Joe is an older teenager and Ox is in his early 20s. And then the moment where, because this spans so much of their lives, and it's definitely a very long journey of knowing them when they're younger and like going through things, and then the whole series really takes over this like long span of time trying to defeat this like evil guy. It's a werewolf romance though, so the Joe and his family are werewolves, and Ox doesn't know that like magic exists, and then things happen. So that's all I really want to say. Definitely lots of action, but lots of like found family and like deep connections with one another, and the romance is everything in here. I was obsessed. I just love everything TJ Klune writes. I guess I owned more of those than I thought, because the last one I have is Little Green Vines. This one is a novella, and I did give this 3 stars just because it's a novella, and I need a lot more of my novellas to rate them higher. But if you want a fun, just kind of out there monster romance, you should read this one. The one heroine runs into the other one in like the wilderness, and she's like a vine thing and does things with her vines. So if you want a really fun monster sapphic romance, read this one. That's really all I have to say about it. And those are some queer romances that I absolutely love. I have so many on my TBR this month that I'm very excited to get to. I have one up next for an audiobook, and like I said, I'm currently reading Tal Bowers, so I'm excited to add more to my recommendations. But that's all I have. Let me know your recommendations in the comments below. I would love to hear them, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.